Absolutely. Of course, Breakfast Central continues this morning. According to a UN study, 166 people have died in 4 months of bloody fighting in South Sudan's far north. What is the origin of these conflicts?
How would you characterize the relationship between Salva Kiir and Riek Machar in light of the peace accord that the South Sudanese government and the opposition signed in 2018? This morning, we will be joined by our guest who is going to give us the updates and, analyze the stories from East Africa. He should be joining us now to talk about this. But, yesterday we talked about Salva Kiir. It's just that it wasn't the positive side of the news that was spoken about. It was an unfortunate incidents of, the unfortunate incidents of him on TV and unfortunately urinating on himself, and that highlighted his age. In another sense, we were talking about how effective these older leaders are in terms of being able to carry on governance and being able to just really step down and see that they're old and step aside. We have Darren Bartlett joining us this morning to analyze the story. Good morning, Darren. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well. It might be a good place to start. Salva Kiir and the health challenges he's alleged to be having. Let's probably just bring you in on that. I'm sure you must have seen that video.
Yeah, I do. I saw the video. They were singing the national anthem, and his prostate gave way, and he, what you call urinating on himself. I love to call it waiting on himself, and it was an unfortunate incident. And when you say that these old leaders stay in power for quite some long, along those lines, most times we need to ask ourselves, how did they come to power? Most times, if someone comes to power by gun, it's not so easy for them to leave because of they don't know what will happen. It's the fear for the unknown. If I leave power without a smooth transition, maybe an election in South Sudan, like since they got independence in 2001, they've never had an election in their country. They've had two presidents. Yes, the founding father, Garang, died in a plane crash when he was leaving Uganda for a meeting with President Yoweri Museveni. So he died on his way, and then Salva Kiir became a president. But since then, it's been violence after violence. As you know, South Sudan has quite a number of tribes, and these people are divided into, usually the fight comes from a tribal angle. And if you look at the structure, how South Sudan has been set up to today, they don't have a specific structure of how power runs. It's a country that I know that has five vice presidents. I don't know if you've ever seen that anywhere in the world, but yes, there are five vice presidents in one country, and all these are elected to represent specific groups to try and bring peace in the country, because those are some of the agreements they have signed. If we are to have peace in this country, then we must have this number of vice presidents here, one representing one tribe, another from another from different tribes, so that they feel like they are represented. But is it the case, though? Do they feel represented is another thing. So most times, they don't leave power because they are not so sure, in my view, they are not so sure of what may happen, because you never know, you may be charged for crimes that you committed while you were trying to instill peace. Sometimes, if you have to to instill peace in a country, then sometimes you have to use force. Some people would justify that. So yeah, I don't know. He will be in power till when he feels he has to leave power, until probably they have an election sometime to come. We expect that to happen in 2 years. That is if they follow the protocols that were signed and those that were mediated by the East African leaders to see that they kind of have a democratic state there. So I don't know if he'll leave power really. I'm not sure.
Okay, power is not anybody's inheritance. We'll move away. Before we move away from South Sudan, let's talk about the relationship between Salva Kiir and Riek Machar in light of the peace accord that the South Sudanese government and the opposition signed in 2018. How would you analyze that?
I would say that the peace, it's an issue of trust in this case, because I remember last year Salva Kiir said he signed the peace agreement because he wanted peace, but he did not understand. He did not understand the actual, what entailed in the peace. Really, it was not interpreted well to him. That is after we saw soldiers move into Riek Machar's home, surrounding it. Yes, they didn't cause any other commotion apart from that. And Riek Machar thought that this is going to be another war between him and the leader. Remember, these two represent different people. They all have different armies that they are trying to integrate into to make one army since 2001. And I'll just give you a history a little back. When South Sudan was born, there was contest in a camp, or Garanga's camp, and some felt that as Garanga becomes the president, Riek Machar wanted to be the vice president, but it was given to Salva Kiir. Now, when Garanga died, Riek Machar and Salva Kiir felt, yes, okay, we need to contest for leadership. There needs to be an electoral process, something they didn't agree with, and Riek Machar was exiled. He came back, they signed another agreement. He was exiled again. He actually exiled himself again because he says there's going to be tension. And he came back again the second time. So what came here is that there were soldiers who were loyal to Riek Machar, and then there are those who are loyal to Salva Kiir. That caused a lot of conflict. We saw over 3 million people displaced. They went outside actually of the country. They went into refugee camps in Sudan, the main Sudan, and then others came into Uganda. But even when they have tried to reconcile since they signed a peace agreement in 2018, some soldiers who were loyalists to Riek Machar felt they were betrayed because what they wanted was leadership here. They went and formed other armed groups in the northern part of South Sudan, where the White Nile is, and basically the biggest part, which is the northern part of it. So they felt they were betrayed by this agreement because what the interest they wanted in this agreement was not represented by them. So over time, we've seen conflicts come up here and there. That kids have been kidnapped, women have been raped, people are sleeping in bushes as a way to escape violence in their villages. But the UN report that came out also has other elements. It's attributing some of these violent activities to things like climate change. And they go ahead and explain that because there is drought in northern Sudan, some of these people who are armed have decided to go into homes and kill people so that they can survive. I mean, steal cows, because
that's very sad.
They also, oh God, yeah.
Let's talk about violence for a bit, but this time around in Uganda. According to the Uganda's People's Defense Force, they killed ADF insurgents trying to enter Uganda from the DRC. Now, we are aware that the UPDF is currently engaged in Operation Shuja, which is a joint operation with the DRC army to hunt down these rebels in DRC. The question is, how did these rebels get beyond the Ugandan border?
Well, they crossed a river Chanja to get into Uganda, and but what the UPDF says here that what they killed 17 ADF rebels, captured about 16, but some of the 16 are kids, minors, really below the age of 18. Some of them are actually 15, some are 12, were armed. But the UPDF says that they had intelligence that created around in Congo. And in some parts of Uganda, of course, the border part of Uganda, and they got some intelligence on Tuesday morning that there is a group of armed people who are walking towards Uganda, crossing the river, and they managed to lay a trap and kill these ADF soldiers. But that doesn't mean, whereas the UPDF has informed the people of Ntoroko that it is safe, though some of them had already displayed, they're telling people to go back and resettle because it's safe. It's believed that some of them, the UPDF members, could have been hiding in people who provided them intelligence, even when it was wrong, to come into Uganda. So there is fear that there are some people who are already providing intelligence to the ADF since the operation was launched in January into Congo. So they left their camps in Congo and ran into different parts of Congo, but in small groups. And this was one of the groups that was trying to make its way back into Uganda. So UPDF attributes it to intelligence that they have in different camps and also in the people of Uganda. But there are so many questions when it comes to their activities. If you come to Uganda alone, we've seen ADF bombing places like Kampala. And it means that the ADF are actually living amongst the people within town. We've seen people who have not yet, the security agencies have not yet come up to classify them, but they have been robbing police stations and killing police officers and stealing guns. So the question is, who's these people who are stealing the guns and where are they going? Could they be going to are these the ADF rebels? People stealing these guns and selling them to the ADF rebels? It's a security question, and we hope that the security will do the best to protect the people of Uganda.
Absolutely. Now, still in Uganda, Dominic Ongwen, who's a former child soldier and a key figure in the Lord's Resistance Army, was found guilty of war crimes. He filed an appeal of his sentence, but the judge dismissed it and upheld the conviction. Now, what does this imply for Ugandans who endure the LRA-related suffering for years?
I would say it's a mixed feeling. For people of Uganda, especially the northern people in Uganda, are happy about the ruling of the appeal. I mean, Dominic Ongwen tried to appeal the sentence that was given to him of 25 years. But the human rights here have so many questions that I've put in place. They're saying Dominic Ongwen, which is also part of his grounds that he filed for appeal, was a child soldier. He was abducted on his way to school and taken into the rebel camps. He was trained, he grew up in the ranks, and they believe that he was just brainwashed and became, who he became. But in the wisdom of the judges, they feel by the time he ordered an attack on the people in Gulu, which led to 10,000 people dead, he surely was in his right mind of state. So you cannot say that he was brainwashed, if at all he ordered that kind of attack that left such a number of people dead. If you read the horrible stories and hear the testimonies of people whose lips who have been cut, limbs taken off, arms taken off, and when Dominic Ongwen here was in charge, like the second in command, and authorizing such operations, they are quite sad. But there are also circumstances where you could argue that the same way some other rebels were granted amnesty, he's one of them who came out and surrendered. He was not captured. He surrendered. He through some intelligence, he gave up himself. He felt he deserved a lighter sentence because it was out of his will that he came out of the bush. But again, it was against his will that he was abducted and trained and brainwashed that way. So those were the arguments, some of the arguments that were put together. But unfortunately, Hague does not agree with that. They believe he deserves the 25-year sentence, which he was going to serve.
Oh, sadly, even if he gets life imprisonment or even the death penalty, would not fix the hurt and the pain that has been caused by the Lord's Resistance Army. Thank you so much, Darren Bartlett, for your time this morning. Always interesting speaking with you. We hope for better stories and better conversations from East Africa next weekend.
There will be positive stories.
Hopefully.
Nice weekend.
Okay. All right. It's still, of course, Breakfast Central on a Friday morning here in Lagos. And, of course, wherever you are watching us from across the continent, we hope that you tweeted us this morning at News Central TV and let us know your thoughts on any of these stories.